Thank you, Nina Enrique. Good evening, everyone. I'm Alma Angeles for NET25 World News. On tonight's headlines. A tragic stampede at the Mahakumbela religious festival in northern India has claimed several lives and injured approximately 10 others. The incident occurred during the festival's most sacred day in India as millions gathered for their river immersion. In South Korea, quick-thinking emergency crews prevented a potential disaster when a commercial aircraft caught fire before takeoff. All 176 passengers were safely evacuated after flames erupted in the aircraft's tail section. In environment news, a groundbreaking study released by U.S. and European scientists has linked climate change to the intensity of this month's devastating Los Angeles fires. And the news starts now. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. is pushing to expedite a bill that would postpone the first parliamentary elections in the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao or BARM. Take a look.
Mas gusto nila, makafocus sila at ito ang panahon na kinakailangan nila para mag-refocus ng security forces dun sa BARM area. Pangalawa, para mabigyan din ng sapat na panahon ng BTA kung sakasakali, kung pagpapasya nila, na i-reallocate yung 7 seats na dapat nasa Sulu na nawala bungsod ng Supreme Court decision. Dahil kung i-reallocate yon, meron silang prosesong kailangan pagdaanan sa Bangsamoro Transition Authority, may publication pa yon, tapos kailangan mag-adjust na naman ng balota at period of filing ng COMELEC dahil hindi sila nagpa-file ng kandidato kung sakasakali sa 7 seats sa Sulu. So, binibigyan lang ng sapat na allowance at leeway. Kesa naman bumalik na naman sila sa Kongreso at humiling ng dagdag na 2 buwan o 1 buwan pang extension.
A tragic stampede at the Mahakumbela religious festival in northern India has claimed several lives and injured approximately 10 others. The incident occurred during the festival's most sacred day in India as millions gathered for their river immersion. Now, drone footage revealed the massive scale of the gatherings, with countless devotees converging before dawn at the temporary township. The initial stampede began at around 1 a.m. local time, although authorities initially deemed it not serious. However, the situation deteriorated when fleeing devotees encountered a second bottleneck at an exit, forcing them to turn back toward closed pontoon bridges.
Suddenly, there was a huge crowd and we got stuck somehow. People started pushing aggressively and we fell.
Now, Reuters correspondents at the scene reported multiple casualties with emergency services rushing to the riverbank. An official speaking anonymously confirmed the death toll and injury count. The aftermath painted a devastating scene, medical teams evacuating victims on stretchers, grieving families huddled on the ground, and personal belongings strewn across the festival grounds. Investigations are ongoing to determine the cause of a fire which had engulfed an Airbus plane belonging to South Korean carrier Air Busan, according to South Korean authorities in Busan today. Now, the fire service was alerted to the fire, which began inside the plane just before 10:30 p.m. local time. It is a month since the deadliest air disaster on South Korean soil when a Jeju airplane coming from Bangkok crashed on Muan Airport's runway as it made an emergency belly landing, killing all but 2 of the 181 people and crew members on board. Investigation is still ongoing.
An Air Busan flight caught fire on Tuesday night at South Korea's Gimhae International Airport in Busan, just before departure to Hong Kong. Fire authorities confirmed all 169 passengers and 7 crew members were safely evacuated, with 3 sustaining minor injuries. The fire engulfed a 17-year-old Airbus A321ceo plane around 10:30 at night. Investigations are underway, with Busan Mayor Park Hyung-jun calling for a review of aviation safety.
또 아직 We can't confirm the exact cause yet, but the fact that this big accident burned down the plane should be used as an opportunity to check the entire aviation system we have.
Tuesday's incident follows last month's deadly Jeju air crash in Muan, which killed 179 people. Some in the capital Seoul on Wednesday told Reuters the recent incidents had them anxious about flying.
In the past, there weren't any incidents, but these days there have been a lot of plane accidents for some reason. I'm a little nervous and worried about so many accidents happening, and I'm a little reluctant to fly on a plane.
Airbus said it was aware of Tuesday's incident and was liaising with Air Busan. The airline and its parent company Asiana Airlines did not immediately respond to requests for comment. Korean Air, which acquired Asiana in December, directed inquiries to Air Busan.
Donald Trump's White House ordered that all federal grants and loans be frozen starting Tuesday, and the sweeping decision could disrupt education and healthcare programs, disaster relief, and other initiatives that depend on billions of dollars from the government. The acting head of the Office of Management and Budget, which oversees the federal budget, said the money would be put on hold while the Trump administration reviews grants and loans to ensure they're aligned with the president's priorities.
This is a dagger at the heart of the average American family in red states, in blue states, in cities, in suburbs, in rural areas. It is just outrageous.
A US judge on Tuesday temporarily blocked part of the Trump administration's sweeping directive to pause federal loans, grants, and other financial assistance. In a Washington, D.C. federal court hearing, US District Judge Lauren Ali Khan ordered the White House to not block funding to existing programs until February 3rd, a win for advocacy groups who said the policy would be devastating. President Donald Trump's White House ordered billions of dollars of federal grants and loans to be frozen, which could disrupt education and healthcare programs, disaster relief, and other initiatives. Earlier on Tuesday, a coalition of attorneys general announced they would sue Trump's pause of federal funding. 6 states, including New York, Massachusetts, and California, said the lawsuit was meant to preserve essential funding for Americans. Here's California's Rob Banter.
We will not stand by while the president attempts to disrupt vital programs that feed our kids, provide medical care to our families, and support housing in our communities. We won't stand by while the president breaks the law and oversteps his authority as outlined in our Constitution, a Constitution he swore an oath to uphold just 1 week ago.
The acting head of the Office of Management and Budget, which oversees the federal budget, said the money would be put on hold to ensure it aligned with the president's priorities, including executive orders he signed ending diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. New York Attorney General Letitia James said 20 states, including New York, were blocked from Medicaid's payment system, a public health insurance program for low-income people.
This is not a question of being adversarial. This is a question of the Constitution and the rule of law. And all of us took an oath to obey the Constitution and uphold it. Clearly, his actions are arbitrary and capricious. His actions violate the Constitution, the separation of powers. He fails to respect a co-equal branch of government. He exceeded his authority.
The White House said Medicaid was exempted and no payments had been affected.
This is not a blanket pause on federal assistance and grant programs from the Trump administration. Individual assistance, that includes, I'm not naming everything that's included, but just to give you a few examples, Social Security benefits, Medicare benefits, food stamps, welfare benefits, assistance that is going directly to individuals will not be impacted by this pause.
Georgetown University law professor Stephen Vladek said the funding halt runs afoul of Congress's legislative control of public funding.
This is a nuclear-tipped broadsword. And to allow this kind of program to go forward would not just have immediate, harsh, deleterious effects on all kinds of segments of society. It would really pretty radically reorient the separation of powers in this country away from the legislature and toward the executive.
Vladek said he expects the administration to walk back the policy or lose in court. The US Justice Department, which would defend the policy in court, did not immediately respond to requests for comment.
Tensions are high at the U.S.-Mexico border after gunfire erupted from the Mexican side, targeting U.S. Border Patrol agents in Texas. Officials confirm no agents were hurt, but the area remains an active crime scene. The shooting happened at Fronton Island, a small strip of land in the Rio Grande. And Texas authorities say they've credible evidence linking the attack to members of a Mexican drug cartel. In response, the Pentagon is stepping up security, deploying thousands of Marines to reinforce the southern border. Right now, about 2,000 troops are already on site, assisting with border fortifications. These soldiers, once on the front lines of America's war on terror, are now reinforcing fencing with steel beams and barbed wire. Meanwhile, U.S. officials have also ramped up deportations. The Pentagon released footage of migrants being loaded onto U.S. Air Force cargo planes for removal. Many of them had hoped to secure legal entry, but now face uncertain future.
We were waiting for the CBP-1 appointments, but now we're all left with our hands tied as Trump says stay in Mexico. I'm here because my husband was killed in Ecuador. I have evidence, complaints, videos of how they killed my husband. They also killed the father of my grandchildren, who are also here. I'm here with my children and grandchildren, and our dream is to reach the United States.
My opportunity, my vision, was to reach the United States. But now the dream is over. I have no other choice but to stay here because of the deportation policies of the United States. And because my country Haiti isn't safe. It has political problems. I don't want to return there now.
But President Trump is doubling down on border security. He's asking Congress for more funding to carry out mass deportations, vowing to remove what he calls illegal alien criminals from the U.S.
In the coming weeks, I'm looking forward to working with Congress on a reconciliation bill that financially takes care of our plans to totally and permanently restore the sovereign borders of the United States once and for all. This should include full funding for a record increase in border security personnel and retention bonuses for ICE and Border Patrol. These people are incredible people. I got to know them so well. We also need a massive increase in the number of detention beds and funding for all border security infrastructure and barriers, including the completion of the border wall.
He also warned that countries refusing to take back deported migrants will face steep economic penalties, including tariffs. With the military now playing a major role in Trump's border crackdown, it's American taxpayers who will ultimately foot the bill for this massive operation. U.S. President Donald Trump still plans to make good on his promise to issue tariffs on Canada and Mexico on Saturday. That is according to White House spokesperson Caroline Leavitt, telling this to reporters. Now, Ms. Leavitt said Trump is also still weighing fresh tariffs on China for Saturday.
He said that the February 1st date for Canada and Mexico still holds. He rejected the 2.5% tariff. He said that was a little bit too low. He wants it to be higher. I'll leave it to him to make any decisions on that front. Phil Eichmann.
Trump said last week he would announce 25% tariffs on Mexico and Canada on February 1, unless the countries help tackle the twin issues of U.S. fentanyl trafficking and immigration. Take a look.
The president has made it very clear, again, that he expects every nation around this world to cooperate with the repatriation of their citizens. And the president has also put out specific statements in terms of Canada and Mexico when it comes to what he expects in terms of border security. We have seen a historic level of cooperation from Mexico. But again, as far as I'm still tracking, and that was last night talking to the president directly, February 1st is still on the books.
Now, 1 week after his inauguration, U.S. President Donald Trump stays true to his promises. After issuing sweeping executive orders, talks of implementing additional tariffs intensify. U.S. neighbor Canada, however, is preparing its countermeasures should Trump's tariffs come into effect. Ashley Sackmar reports.
With Donald Trump being inaugurated as once again President of the United States of America, looms a tariff war soon and likely to become a reality between the U.S. and Canada. Hours after his inauguration, Trump said that he was planning that the 25% tariff with Canada and Mexico would come into effect on February 1st. Canada's new Minister of Finance, Dominique LeBlanc, is not surprised with Trump's statements and that the U.S. president can be unpredictable.
We're not going to speculate on what exactly are different scenarios. Next week, we think we'll know the precise details of what these tariffs will mean to the Canadian economy, and we'll be ready, of course, to respond from a position of strength, and we hope as a unified country. But it doesn't serve any purpose. I get that everybody is imagining complicated circumstances. We're very much on the job, and we're working together. And when we see the full extent of what the American proposal is, of course, we'll respond.
In a recent meeting with the 13 premiers of Canada, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau came up with robust retaliatory plans to support and protect Canadians from the possible economic harm of U.S. tariffs. Alberta's Premier Danielle Smith has refused to sign the joint plan, as it currently includes restricting Alberta's energy exports to the U.S. The Prime Minister also says that no one wants to see U.S. tariffs on Canadian goods, but if necessary, Canada will be ready with a national response and protect Canadians and defend the free trade agreement. Ashley Sackmar, Toronto, Ontario for NET25 World News.
The United States has formally told the UN it is pulling out of the Paris Climate Accord. And the announcement came from UN spokesperson Stéphane Dujarric, who said the withdrawal will become official next January 27.
And I can confirm to you that the United States has notified the Secretary General in his capacity as depository of its withdrawal on January 27th of this year from the Paris Agreement, which, as you recall, was signed on December 12th, 2015. According to Article 28, Paragraph 2 of the Paris Agreement, the withdrawal of the United States will take effect on January 27th, 2026. We reaffirm our commitment to the Paris Agreement and support all effective efforts to limit the rise in global temperatures to 1.5 degrees Celsius.
The move echoes Trump's previous stance on climate policy. During his first presidency, he withdrew the U.S. from the agreement in 2020 before President Biden brought the nation back in. As the world's second largest greenhouse gas emitter, America's participation in the accord is considered crucial by climate experts. Now, this latest withdrawal marks the second time Trump has moved to exit the agreement, having signed the executive order on his first day back in office. A new scientific study has linked climate change to the devastating Los Angeles fires that swept through the region this month. Now, the fires claimed at least 28 lives and left nearly 16,000 structures damaged or destroyed. According to research published yesterday by World Weather Attribution, a coalition of international scientists, global warming has made such extreme fire conditions 35% more likely in the Los Angeles area. The study also found that the unusually dry conditions experienced in Los Angeles from October through December are now more than twice as likely to occur compared to pre-industrial times.
These are very, very fast-moving fires. The wind speeds were incredibly strong, and we had an incredibly dry and contiguous fuel bed. So realistically, this was a perfect storm when it comes to conditions for fire disasters. The ingredients in terms of climate enabling and weather driving the fires, and the huge built environment sort of right downwind from where these ignitions occurred.
And Dr. Claire Barnes from Imperial College London explained the statistical findings.
According to this statistical model, peak January fire weather this extreme is about 35% more likely to occur in the current climate than it would have been if the climate were 1.3 degrees cooler, so without anthropogenic warming. In the observations, an October to December period as dry as 2024's is expected about once every 20 years. And it's about 2.4 times more likely to occur in the current climate than in a cooler pre-industrial climate. But we also note that the likelihood of this low rainfall was increased by the oncoming La Nina conditions, but to a lesser degree. So it was made about 1.8 times more likely, or 80% more likely.
A truck fell into a 5-meter deep sinkhole at a traffic junction in Japan's Saitama Prefecture. The trailer of the truck was retrieved by rescuers in Yashio City, but a 74-year-old man is still trapped inside the truck and is unresponsive as of Wednesday, according to national broadcaster NHK. A second sinkhole opened nearby in the early hours of Wednesday, according to NHK, and authorities have warned residents of more holes emerging nearby and a potential gas leak, encouraging evacuation within a 200-meter radius of the sinkhole. As thousands of Palestinians return to northern Gaza following a ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas, residents of Israeli border towns like Sderot are living in fear.
After 15 months of war, which paused with a ceasefire deal agreed by Israel and Hamas last week, tens of thousands of Palestinians stream along the main roads leading to the northern part of Gaza. Residents of Sderot, however, fear that with allowing hundreds of thousands of Palestinians back to the territories north, an attack similar to October 7 is only a matter of time. Israel's Sderot sits a kilometer away from the northeastern corner of the Gaza Strip. The town has been a frequent target for Palestinian rocket fire from Gaza for over 2 decades, and some 70 of its residents were killed in the Hamas-led attack of October 7, 2023. 48-year-old Sderot resident Eben Dayan recalls how the attack on October 7 changed their life. And with the ceasefire letting Palestinians back, he says they again fear for their lives.
My brother unfortunately was murdered on October 7. I live with my family right there. And the terrorists were on the street. We were locked inside the house. And where did they come from? From northern Gaza. So now we are back to the same situation more or less. We have loads of Gazans and within them loads of terrorists, and we're back to the same situation, that we are not safe. We don't know what is going to happen. Maybe there are still tunnels that were not found. And they can use them to enter Israel again and commit another massacre. And this is sad. It's very sad.
42-year-old Gidit Batera, also a resident of Sderot, says she is afraid for her children.
I have small children, and I wait. You know what I wait? The next October 7, because I know when you give the terrorists free, October 7 come back. Not now, in the future. And I feel panic.
68-year-old Alice Spector is certain an attack like October 7 will recur sooner than later.
Everything that happened on October the 7th, at this moment when they let the Nukba, the Hamas militants back to northern Gaza, will repeat itself? They, the Hamas, say a year. It won't be a year. They will choose the date.
The implementation of the Israel-Hamas ceasefire deal began Sunday, January 19, after negotiators U.S., Egypt, and Qatar brokered a deal with both parties. Bernadette Regini for NET25 World News.
The Doomsday clock has been set to 89 seconds to midnight, the closest it has ever been. The clock is a symbolic timepiece showing how close humanity is to destruction. Take a look.
This is the closest the world has ever been. In setting the clock closer to midnight, we send a stark signal. Because the world is already perilously close to the precipice, any move towards midnight should be taken as an indication of extreme danger and an unmistakable warning. Every second of delay in reversing course increases the probability of global disaster. The countries that possess nuclear weapons are increasing the size and role of their arsenals, investing hundreds of billions of dollars in weapons that can destroy civilization many times over. Meanwhile, arms control treaties are in tatters, and there are active conflicts involving nuclear powers. The world's attempts to deal with climate change remain inadequate, as most governments fail to enact the financing and policy initiatives necessary to halt global warming. There is hope. I mean, we certainly believe that the clock can be moved back, and there are many actions that can be taken. Our concern is that over the past year, those actions are not being taken.
Australian police said today they had foiled a planned anti-Semitic attack after discovering a caravan containing explosives in an escalation of threats against the Jewish community that authorities called terrorism. The caravan was discovered on January 19 in Dural, a suburb some 36 kilometers northwest of the center of Sydney.
This is the discovery of a potential mass casualty event. There's only one way of calling it out, and that is terrorism. That's what we're very worried about. This would strike terror into the community, particularly the Jewish community, and it must be met with the full resources of the government.
Police were contacted and subsequently recovered a caravan on a residential property, rural property. That caravan contained an amount of explosives and some indication that those explosives might be used in some form of anti-Semitic attack. Look, I'm not an expert. I believe the blast zone could have been 40 metres in diameter, but which is a significant amount of damage.
And the news continues here on NET25. We'll be right back. A new chapter in aviation history unfolded as U.S. startup Boom Supersonic achieved what no private company had done before, breaking the sound barrier with its XB-1 aircraft over the Mojave Desert. Take a look.
The return of supersonic air travel just might have come a step closer.
There we are. XB-1 is supersonic, faster than the speed of sound.
US startup Boom Supersonic sent its XB-1 jet through the sound barrier on Tuesday. It says the test flight over the Mojave Desert marked the first time any privately funded plane has hit the landmark speed. Legendary pilot Chuck Yeager was the first human to exceed the sound barrier back in 1947. Such speeds have since become routine for many military aircraft. But supersonic travel hasn't been on offer to airline passengers for some 2 decades. That is, since the Anglo-French Concorde was retired in 2003. Its success was limited by high operating costs that made tickets very expensive. Now Boom has plans to develop a successor. Dubbed Overture, it's meant to carry up to 80 passengers across the Atlantic in about 3.5 hours. That's roughly half the time taken by a regular jet. Company CEO Blake Scholl says regulations are now the main stumbling block.
Today we have one of the silliest rules in the world, which is you can't fly supersonic over land, no matter how quiet the airplane is. And so we're picking up where Concorde left off. Initially, we'll fly right under the speed of sound over land, which is still 20% faster than a Boeing or Airbus. And over the water, we'll open up the throttles and go twice as fast.
Boom hopes those regulations will change and says Overture will be much more economical to operate than Concorde. The firm has completed construction on a factory for the new plane in Greensboro, North Carolina. It says it has 130 orders and expressions of interest from American Airlines, United Airlines and Japan Airlines. But years of research and development still lie ahead before any passenger boards a supersonic flight.
Extreme cold has blanketed Niagara Falls in heavy snow and ice. Now take a look at this footage, captured on the New York side, showing thick ice and snow surrounding the iconic landmark. Visitors marveled at the sight.
Yeah, it's really beautiful.
Have you ever seen anything like this before?
No, first time. I've seen quite a few waterfalls, but this is something else.
According to Niagara Parks, the falls never fully freeze, even in extreme cold. As temperatures drop, mist and spray form a thick crust of ice over the rushing water, creating the illusion of a frozen waterfall. But the water continues to flow beneath the ice. And that's it for tonight's broadcast. For everyone here on NET25, I'm Alma Angeles. Thank you for joining us. Good night.